Gary Graham, you mentioned the job that he's done. It's funny because I was listening to the game on the radio, and Bob Chase had David Franke, and I can't remember. It was between periods in either game 4 or 5, 3 or 4. He says Gary Graham is a much better coach today than he was 3 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
Do you agree with that statement?
Totally. I mean, 3 months ago, he would not have had, how do I want to say this? I don't think he would have had the intuitive smarts to put Dean Willett in and bench Matt Carter and Jason Dale. And it's not like either one of those guys was playing poorly. I mean, they were playing fine, but Dean just adds a little bit more. And you know, would you have ever thought you were gonna sit Matt Carter for Cy Nutkovich? When you look at the numbers and look at the potential, what do each of them bring? Mm-hmm. You know, those are great moves. Those are unbelievable moves that he made.
Is it more confidence in knowing what he's doing, or is it more cachet with the players that he has now?
It's both. It's also inspiring confidence in a guy like Jace Coyle, who struggled so horribly the last 10, 15 games of the season. And he's been rock solid out there right now. It's a little bit of things like that. It's just, you know, I mean, look at how he's using Scott Fleming on defensive zone faceoffs late in games. I mean, it's all these little things that he's picked up upon, and it's just the adjustments he's making. Now, Gary's never been a shy guy about being confident, mm-hmm. but there's a little bit difference between being confident and knowing that that's the right move. You know, you can bluff your way through things sometimes. He doesn't have to bluff anymore. He's got the guys buying in, and they believe in him the way he believes in them. And that's really the thing right there, is he convinced those guys that they were better than what their record showed, and they were ready at the end of the season. I mean, how often did he talk about they want to be hot at the end of the season? It's like, okay, you won 3 in a row. That's hot. It's not hot to anybody else, but he convinced them that it was hot. You know, it's just kind of strange little things like that, I mean, because, you know, you look at the last 3 games, they were, Evansville and Toledo, and, okay, you won a big whip.
Yeah, they were bottom feeders.
Right, and they won them by 1 goal. You know, I mean, they were like, okay, you played just well enough to win. But somehow he convinced those guys that they were ready, that they were hot, that they were on a roll, and it worked.
Well, the same interview I heard from Franke said, you know, people are surprised at how we responded in the playoffs. They feel like they've been playing playoff games for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, but you know what, too, is
to get in.
And I've been thinking about this, too, Glenn, is why are we surprised the Komets pulled off an upset? You know, every year it seems like when they get in the playoffs, they just have this knack that we almost expect good things to happen.
Well, because
they do,
But it's weird because you're not talking about the core of Colin Chalk, DC Druin.
But you weren't talking about it with Greg Puhalski either.
Okay.
You know, I mean, if you look at it, the fact that they've won a road game in 11 out of their last 12 playoff series, right there says it all. It's unbelievable. There's probably no other franchise in hockey that's done that. It's remarkable.
Well, one thing that struck me as odd, just from a numbers perspective, is the attendance. It was 5,008 people for, you know, a game like we've talked about, a historic game, possibly on Sunday. Not much else going on. It's earlier, so the kids, if they have to go to school, although it did go to double overtime, but going in, are you surprised that they didn't draw more?
No, not at all. And I went back and looked at it, and I looked like up to 2,000. Traditionally, the first round, the draw is right around 6,000. So they're a little below that, but you got like a Thursday game. You know, you look at a Sunday night game again. Mm-hmm. It's okay. You know, they'll do better the next round probably. But traditionally, they're right about where they usually are in the first round. You know, I think, again, we get spoiled. We expect, you know what throws that all off is you look at the IHL years when the last 3, where they were playing known quantities. They were playing Kalamazoo in the first round, or Port Huron in the first round, or Muskegon in the first round. Mm-hmm. You know, and you knew guys on those teams, and that was a rivalry, and especially Port Huron. And then you look at Rapid City in the first round. I mean, and after the year before, I was like, okay, that's a war. You know that's going to be a war. And Reading was kind of like Rapid City in that, except they hadn't really played them that much. So the fans here didn't recognize that yet. If they play Reading in the first round next year, oh yeah, it'll be a hot ticket, you know. So you got to look at it that way. It's like those 3 IHL years really skewed the numbers. So that's why I went back to 2000, and these are right in line with where they were then, when going into a new league and that kind of thing.
Well, one thing I know you're going to be looking into this week, and this is kind of wrap it up. Mike Ambach, discipline possible from the ECHL?
Possible. I don't think likely, but I thought it was the right call. It was an impossible situation for the official. Looking at it instantly head on, without the benefit of replay or anything else, you got to make the call. I mean, that's one of those where you better be too harsh versus not harsh enough. And I thought he made the call he had to make. Now, looking back on replay and such, okay, Mike got him with the hip, and there were other circumstances. You can't look at the replay to make the call. So you've got to go with that and make the best of it, and that's why I don't think there will be further discipline. And that will be a huge key to the next series, especially if they play Cincinnati, because Mike tears Cincinnati apart. Former Cyclone, didn't want to be traded. He talks about it all the time in the locker room. He puts money on the board when whoever gets the game winner. He wants to beat the Cyclones really, really
bad. So he's
bad.
Like our version of Mickey Lang.
Very, very much so.
All right. Well,
very much so.
Whatever happens, it's going to be interesting. There are going to be some great storylines for the second round series. Where
the first round was just fantastic that way. I mean, it was just so much fun, and I'm doing a thing about it tomorrow. It's like, there was only 1 year they missed the playoffs, but it sure felt like 5, didn't it? I mean, it really did. Just the 1 year, because we've been so blessed with all these great storylines over the last 10, 15 years in the playoffs, and it's like, oh, thank goodness, it's so great to be back.
It's not much of a valley when it's just a little tiny dip, but
right. And you think about this too.
But you respect the passion that everybody believes.
Yeah, exactly.
This team
totally
can do it. They want it.
Well, and look at Game 1. If Sean Sidlowski gets called for interference versus scoring the game-winning goal, we're still playing. And that changes the whole series probably.
This is true.
It's just amazing how little moments can make the biggest difference.
All right, well, we'll have to talk about some more little moments next week as the Komets look forward to the second round of the postseason. He's Blake, I'm Glenn, and we'll see you next Monday.